compliance, and employee engagement. Megha has worked extensively with teams across the US, Europe, Asia Pacific, and India. She's managed merger and acquisition, led organizational design for large businesses, reorganized to define the right structure, span of control, and focus on organizational priorities. Some of the awards that she has received during her career are you in the list? HR Leader Award by People Matters in the year 2016, HR 40 Under 40 Award by Business World in the year 2020, and Most Innovative Leader Award by World HRD Congress in the year 2021. Now, it is going to be definitely an exciting, enriching, and knowledge-packed session that we will be witnessing today. The topic for today's session is career post-pandemic and what to expect. I would like you all to join me in welcoming our guest for today, Megha. And without much ado, I would like to invite her to share her insights, knowledge, and experience with all of us. So over to you, Megha.
Thank you, Saurabh. And, I'm definitely pleased to be part of this platform again and share my insights. Now, I know that, we are a little delayed and apologies. I was facing, a couple of technical challenges. While a lot of my conversation today is over the technology, but this is what technology brings us, right? Which means while, technology enables us in the pandemic, what technology also does is, the challenges that technology brings us is also very, very unique and interesting. Now, if I have to really, think about, what I'm going to do is, in this next 45 minutes, in total we have 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly wrap up this presentation in probably 30 minutes or 40 minutes. And next 15 minutes or so, I do want to keep for question and answers. So that's what my plan is on, how do I want to structure this conversation. So hold on to all your thoughts, all your questions. We'll absolutely spend some time in the end to do that. Now, can I ask to, help me through the slides? I'm sorry, I really wanted to take it from my laptop, but as I said, I was facing technical challenges. So then, I have to ask the team to really help me, support me from the laptop standpoint. So I can't see the screen of the laptop of the presentation. Can you all see it? So can the viewers see the presentation? I can't.
We'll just be uploading that. So Neeraj, you can start sharing that, and Neeraj will be helping you out, Megha.
Thank you, Saurabh. Okay, no is the answer. Never mind. I can even do this without presentation. So let's move, to a couple of slides. I just want to skip this out in interest of time. Let's skip this out because I don't want to make this conversation about me. But let's move to slide 3, Neeraj. Okay, perfect. Now, before I start this, I do want to put, in context of, what has happened in the last 2 years. And think about, I used to go to 5 days a week to office. My kid was really young, and, I used to travel to Pune, to multiple other locations in India. And, that is where nobody expected that COVID-19 got hit. And there was a time where all of us suddenly were into a conversation to say that, oh my God, if lockdown is going to happen in India, and if everybody works remotely, how is it going to work out? How will people manage? How will our technology even, shape up to, having 10,000 people in India really support the technology working out of home? Will broadband really support that kind of a capability wherein, the speed and everything that people have from a broadband standpoint? And with that, if I fast forward 2 years, literally exactly 2 years from there, this is where we are talking about flexibility, talking about hybrid working, talking about multiple organizations going completely remote. I think this is what, pandemic has done. And, I always say there is silver lining to everything. While, pandemic paused a lot of things, but it also brought new ways of working, new ways of how we can imagine the world. And that's why, I put this quote to say, we don't know when it's going to completely end because it's still there, while the world is opening up. Many countries have called out that, okay, COVID-19 is the new normal, but we don't know when it's going to completely go away. But what we do know by now in the last 2 years is our world is going to look extremely, extremely different to what it was, before the pandemic had hit us. Please, if you can go to the next slide. Needed next slide, please. Perfect. Now, this is, talking about, this was the survey that was done in 2020, and immediately in the first quarter when the pandemic had hit the world. This is basically, a quick glance of, how the Fortune 500 CEOs responded to how the world will look like in 2020s. And if you look at the survey, how CEOs responded, they necessarily thought that their workforce is, going to completely decrease, or, maybe 90% of the workforce will never return to their usual workforce. There were a huge, conversation around the economic activity that, our economic growth is going to go down. There was a huge piece around unemployment, or, how the employment is going to completely take a turn, wherein, almost 53% of the global CEOs talk about that, the economic or the total employment for each of their organization would be far lower, or significantly lower, as to the tune of 50%, when the world is going to come back. They even talked about, layoffs. They even talked about work from home is the new reality. They even spoke about the technology acceleration. They even spoke about the business travel is never going to return the way it was before the pandemic. Now, why I'm showing you this, because, this was, how CEOs responded in the first quarter of the pandemic. But if I now go to the next slide, which is needed, if you go to the next slide, it talks about, after 2 years, that has completely, a different scenario, and in the difference in the sense that, we are already seeing that, occupation is completely shifting post 2019. Instead of, many organizations talking about, unemployment, we have seen a huge shift in the way the employment will look like, after 2 years. And this is, on the right hand side, there is a chart between how the occupations are going to change, and where will you see an increase vis-a-vis where will you will see the decrease in the job. Now look at the rightmost chart of India. Most of it is blue, and blue means, it's going to be, incremental increase in the occupation slash, jobs, whether it's the STEM professional, which is your science, technology, engineering, and machine, whether it's a health professional, whether it's the managerial role, whether it's legal professional, to even see, a builder, construction, production and warehousing will completely go, a couple of these jobs will see a significantly increase in the total employment post-COVID as well. Now imagine what Fortune 500 CEOs thought about to today, how a current study looks like, where it says that by 2020, 2030, the occupations are going to substantially increase than what it is today. Now, while it say that, the reality is also going to be that, there is going to be a significant decrease in the low wage occupations. But at the same time, 25% more workers would be required to switch their occupation. Now, why am I sharing all of this? This may not even be relevant to a lot of you, but you need to understand the context of how industry is going to go through an evolution post this pandemic. We did saw that, there is going to be a huge amount of technology acceleration. With the same point, you would also see a shift of employment from where it was to where it is. Now, if you go to the next slide, it also, gives you a landscape that, it means if job is going to go to a shift, it means there is going to be a huge amount of reskilling that is required by people, what they used to do 2 years ago, vis-a-vis what is expected in the upcoming future from an organization. Now imagine if you need 40% of your current workforce to go through a reskilling exercise, because organizations don't even know how the future look like. Imagine Airbnb, imagine Uber of the world, imagine Hilton was one of the top Fortune companies, and from a revenue standpoint, today Hilton doesn't know how they're going to come back even to the post-pandemic revenue. Uber doesn't know what's their market strategy. Uber Pool was a hit. Today Uber Pool doesn't even exist in the market. They don't even know if they're going to come back. Brands are changing. Brands have to rethink their market strategy of what's their market plus factor that they need to provide. Which means if organizations are going through a transformation journey, so do people in the organization has to go through. Why? Because in the left hand side of the chart, you already see that there is going to be a huge hiring post-COVID that's happening into multiple sectors. And this talks about couple of skills that I thought would be very relevant for you guys, which is around whether it's digital learning and training, whether it's about cyber security, the most important piece that you would see as an upcoming skill, to automation and artificial intelligence. These are some of the skills, and you can see how huge the hiring is happening from a percentage standpoint that has already started in 2021, which means if you put into perspective of everybody needs to go to a technology acceleration, workforce need to go through a reskilling, and there is a huge incremental increase that's happening into the new age hiring strategies, which is Internet of Things, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's cloud, data analytics. You will see suddenly these jobs coming up in the market to an exponential level. Earlier, there were probably 5 people in the organization as cybersecurity. Now, because everything is going to be digitally enabled in the organization, you will see cybersecurity as the key function in the organization, including manufacturing, including healthcare, including e-commerce, including obviously technology is definitely going to have the most critical skills of cybersecurity, because organization can't afford that tomorrow if you're buying a grocery out of Big Basket, what the least that you expect is somebody entered the cybersecurity and attacks either you as an individual or Big Basket as an organization. And hence some of these skills will become extremely important for organizations that they hire, which also means for you it's going to be an untapped market or a potential market for you to think through how can you think about these careers when you apply for any positions, or go and take a certification, say in data analytics, because it's the most called out, most important skill that organizations have already started to hire for. Now, if you move to the next slide, what I also want to show you an example of one of the industry, and I thought e-commerce is the most relevant industry, because if you will see across the globe, there is a substantial increase in the growth of that sector than what it was pre-pandemic. Now, if you see India specifically on, the second chart on the bottom, it's already a 2.1x of the growth on the e-commerce industry. Now, imagine if e-commerce is going to go through that, there is a huge potential for you to think about, can I get into e-commerce industry? Do I understand, and change the landscape of e-commerce through a digital enablement? Can I think about how can, if this industry is going to go, that means hiring is going to go fast. That means new skills are going to come up. Now, that's going to be a big landscape for each one of you to think about. Okay, most of the industries are going through a, technology enablement. There is a growth that is expected into e-commerce, technology, healthcare, and multiple sectors. E-commerce is just one of the examples that I'm putting through. But, you need to start thinking that A, there is going to be a huge opportunities, and B, how do I bring that, differentiation factor when I join this organization? Now, this also means on the right-hand side, that you would also have opportunities, because COVID-19 is pushing the companies to think about how can I now think about remote work, 83%. How do I accelerate digitalization? Now, I'll give you an example. What has happened in the e-commerce, before pandemic, I used to go to my local kirana shop and buy biscuits. And I'm not even talking about like gehu and, chawal and all that stuff. I'm talking about biscuits and Maggi and any packaged product. In the last 2 years, because of Big Basket, your Grofers, which has now become Blinkit, or even Amazon Pantry, I don't remember last when I bought your biscuits and couple of normal household items, packed items from there, because I just order, they deliver, you even get discounts. And that's what digital acceleration is doing. Swiggy has come with a factor of, again, similar model. He also goes to a local kirana shop, but he's easing out of going and out, leveraging their delivery people to go and pick that services for you. Imagine, can you think about a digital platform tomorrow which can help these local kirana shops to come together and start providing their services? Now, that's the future. You will see so disruption in the market that you would have never imagined. It's not about Grofers and Big Basket as large organizations. You will start seeing, a lot of local vendors, local digital technologies start to come up, where your local vendors will start to provide you, digitization of their services. Now, that's what's going to happen in this month, with the technology. That's going to, also accelerate automation to a huge extent, which means more jobs, more requirement for technology, thinking big, thinking different ideas. That also means a lot of startups that is going to solve small little problems rather than, Accentures and Microsoft, solving for the world hunger. You will start to see a lot of startups coming up into smaller niche areas that will solve for maybe just one problem in the market, but, multiple different startups will come up, and bring in those solutions, and you will see the market is going to get completely disrupted because of that. Now, that's one landscape, okay? Now, if I move, to my next slide, and, which is, that I'm talking about is, then what does it mean for all of us? This means that, pandemic is bringing us back to the basic. It's not about the pause button that, oh, everything has got paused and, the landscape will start from where we ended, but it's going to be a restart button for all of you. And think about it for a second, right? You can't start from where you left 2 years ago. If market is so disruptive, if organizations are transforming themselves, you cannot, as an individual, sit and expect 2 years ago I was doing this, I will do exactly the same thing 2 years after. It's not going to work out. You need to push your own restart button to say, okay, if everything around is changing, what am I going to do differently? What skills am I going to acquire differently? Where do I see my future? And now let me give you an example of HR. I don't know how many of you have seen the Gartner study on, the HR, skills required in 2030. But, some of those skills or, some of the roles that is being called out don't even exist today. Imagine I'm sitting in 2020 and I'm talking about 2030. Some of those skills don't even exist today, but it's been called as the magic quadrant in 2030 as the key role that would be required from HR. And some of the roles that we do today, like your HR operations, your payroll, your performance management, are called as the lowest paid jobs or the most available jobs, which, some of it would be done by automation and technology, and probably will not be required by 2030. I'm talking about 8 years from now, which is not that far. Now, imagine if somebody who's a payroll expert or somebody who's an HR operations head or somebody who, probably do background verification, or probably somebody who do expense reimbursement for people. These jobs are not going to, exist in 8 years from now. Now, if that individual doesn't reskill themselves or don't move job or don't, think about what I'm going to do 8 years from now, those jobs are not going to be existent in the market only. And that's going to be true for a lot of job opportunities, whether it's a Java person, whether it's, a person, probably, same example in the e-commerce industry doing something, a lot of robotics and automation is going to come through. So if I move next, to the next piece, which means what the big question that, organizations are thinking, if I put this together is, the three pieces, which organizations are going to solve through. Okay. And if we can move to the next slide, is, what work can be automated, which is around just the automation of level, which means what work can I do through physical, what work needs to be automated. And I think that's the biggest, thing that organizations are doing today to figure out what jobs, what roles, what part of their service that they can automate. So that's the biggest question that organizations are solving. The second challenge that organizations are solving is what talent category, which means the workforce itself. Who can do the work, which means whether it's the technology advancement, bringing the new models, interaction between companies, employees, customers. How can you think about the workforce differently? Which means the organizations are not going to hire the workforce from what they want to do today, but they're going to start hiring for workforce what they think the future is going to be. Now, just step back from here, right? You always thought that, hey, this job meets my requirement of what I've done for 15 years or 10 years or 6 years, but organizations are not going to hire for that anymore. Organizations are going to hire, hey, this person has done Java for last 10 years, but I do know that Java, a lot of aspects are going to get automated. Can this person bring in the knowledge of Java, but can help me do efficient processes, do technology automation in Java, so that my speed of the process is improved, my turnaround time to my customer reduces, or my efficiency increases, or my productivity increases. And that's the workforce for the future that organizations will going to start hiring for. Third piece that organization will solve for is the workplace, which means where the place the work can be done. And I'm sure you would have heard multiple things around hybrid, the combination of technology. When should I think about physical versus when should I bring about hybrid? So all of that is going to bring about a landscape topic, but I don't want to deep dive because that itself is a big topic to solve for. But that's the third thing that the organization will solve for. Now, if I go to the next slide, and Neeraj, if you can quickly move to the next slide, the biggest and the fastest adoption of automation AI will also bring in what kind of a job that organizations solve for when it comes to required in the physical proximity. Now, I'll give you an example of what's shown on the slide. The medical care and the hospitals. Now, if you see, it requires the maximum physical interaction today, because obviously if I am the patient, if I have a problem in my eye, I need to visit the hospital or to the eye specialist, because you need a physical interaction to see what my problem in my eyes is. There are different tools. Does my eye requires, do I have a number, or there is some other problem in the eye? And medical care is the most place where you require a physical proximity. And that means, from the left to the right, the places where you require the physical proximity will have the maximum adoption of automation of AI, because there is already a huge piece of work around how can I now remove the physical proximity and help people operate out of anywhere. Because as I said before, workplace is a big thing that organizations are solving for. So they will also solve for, if medical care requires the most physical proximity, how can I bridge that gap with automation and AI? There are multiple right now technologies that can look into your eye through mobile phones, and they can test at least some basic tests. Similarly, virtual doctor sessions are started to happen. Your mental well-being has started to happen through apps. Your physical well-being through multiple apps has started to happen. And simplest example is your Fitbits, who can track your heartbeat to how many steps you count, and there will be a maximum disruption in this industry through automation and AI. Now, if you put this into your context, if this is going to happen and you believe you are a technology specialist, you should think about medical care, because that's where the maximum adoption is going to happen. If you think about transportation of goods, if you are in that industry, then think about how it's going to impact the transportation costs, the trucks and the yards. How can you reinvent the wheel there? And I'm giving you this perspective because it's going to help you think your future from a career landscape. Now, if you move to the next slide, and Neeraj, if you can help me do that, and this is mostly around talking about if you are in the organization, okay, now how do you put your career into this in the entire scheme of things that I spoke about? If you are in the leadership role, how are you going to solve for this? Which means you're going to need to go back, revisit your business model. Think about what business are you solving for? Think about what's the future of this business. What part of it can be solved by automation and robotics? How can you, leverage technology to really think about, what is the next level for this business? At the same time, can you think about, what new skills, digital skills that you need? How will you improve the employee experience in the digital space? Now, if I'm the HR person, for me, the most important thing is, if I'm going to tomorrow have flexibility for the people are going to operate into a hybrid model. How can I leverage technology to give them the best digital workplace experience? Because now there are no gyms in the office or fancy offices, but it's about the same experience that they can gather digitally. So that's a new skill that is required in the HR. How can I think about, what kind of an IT infrastructure, both physical and the remote workplaces that I need? What kind of a governance that I need to put virtually to collaborate, to provide productivity, to provide work-life balance? How do I manage performance management? If you're a people manager, you have to start thinking like that. How do I, think about reevaluating investments that will provide you remote working models? So you need to start thinking about that, and then put all of this together to say, how do I provide the integrated solution, and that will provide a digital organization. So think about it. If you are into a leadership role, how will you build this structure for careers in the organization? Now, what does it mean for each one of you? Now, I spoke about a couple of, how organization is going to go through. I give you a whole landscape. But what does it mean for each one of you? What will be some of the skills that you should be thinking about to gather? Because if this is going to happen in the job landscape, what are some of the growing job demands? What are some of the skills that you would be required, from 2 years, 3 years down the line? And if I go to the next slide, on the top left, if you think, that's how the job is going to reduce or decrease, which means you will see, the top 10 jobs that are going to be the most in demand in the next 2 years. Similarly, in the last 2 years, this is going to be the most decreasing job demand. So think about, where do you want to invest yourself? Like I said, data analytics and scientists are going to be the most higher job in demand. AI and machine learning, big data, digital marketing, process automation, these are some of the skills that are going to be the most job in demand. And if I just put, from, the technological skills to the softer aspect that you would see or face interviews toward, these are the top skills, from a softer aspect, which means, do you have the analytical thinking? How can you innovate? How can you be the active learner? Remember, now put that, slide in paste. If 40% of the workforce would be required reskilling, then active learning is one of the softer skills that I'm looking forward when I'm hiring an individual. Can this person come with a Java background and solve for technology adoption, which improves turnaround time, complex problem solving? Can this individual do that? Can this person come on board, look at what's happening in the organization, create, the whole environment, say, oh, if we do XYZ, or if we modify XYZ, this is going to give me X productivity. Can you analyze the data? Can you critically think and, bring about, where are we doing wrong? These are things that you have to start acquiring as a skill. And, these are more softer skills, which are more difficult to get. But this is the most important piece that each one of you to start thinking. Go to the bottom two, resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. While organizations are ready to give you flexibility, are you adapt to take that flexibility? Which means, can you have that switch on and off button that, okay, 2 years I manage my home, 2 hours I'm managing my office, because now you're on a flexible work model. Can I give that flexibility for my team members? Can I tolerate the stress? Because imagine there's nothing like a 9 to 6 job anymore. If you're working digitally, then it becomes anytime. So can you manage that kind of a stress? Can you really ideate over a virtual platform? Can you solve problems? Can you reason it out, why this visible, why not? And those would be, more and more, you would face during the interview rounds, whether through, group discussions, or whether through, any kind of a role play that, the interviewer gives you. But these are the skills that they would be looking into you as an individual when they hire from, any individual for the future. Now, we spoke a lot about this, but I can't, finish this topic without talking about this is, and you all should be aware about it, that, while COVID happened, it's probably not, the most gender neutral, and, it has disappropriately affected women. And why do I say that is because if you look at, a lot of layoffs and, the decreasing job demand is also in the industry of the semi-skilled, and, a lot of women workforce work on those semi-skilled. Now think about restaurants, think about, today, earlier you will go to Marks and Spencer to buy something. Today you're doing that shopping online. That means a lot of workforce in that category, were laid off. And those typically were semi-skilled, women workforce, or workforce in minority. And that's why it has disappropriately affected the women. But at the same time, if I quickly talk about, if you will click next, it's about, what will be the share of women in the jobs of tomorrow? And I thought, it would be an important topic to talk to women, to say that, these would also showcase you that, these units will have a lot of opportunities for, in 2025 or, a little more, whether it's marketing, whether it's cloud computing, whether it's people and culture. So some of these skills will absolutely be required from a diversity candidate slate that would happen. I'm mindful of time, so I'll skip this and quickly move to the next. Now, if any of you are in the leadership roles, what leadership skills should I demonstrate? I would have typically asked this question, but I want to leave some of time for your question. So I'll quickly move to the next. Now, this is something that, I thought, you should take back as competencies, which means if you are into a leadership role or a people manager role, you need to start thinking about how will you lead yourself, which means, are you a courageous leader? Are you authentic and open? What value do you carry? And at the same time, you also think about, how do you lead relationship within the organization? Do you communicate? Do you build and connect relationship? Do you facilitate development? Think about, how do you lead your relationship with your peer group, with your team members, with your seniority? And then the biggest thing, both as an individual, as a leader, you need to start thinking about what culture are you leading, whether it's about the climate of trust and respect, whether it's authority or it allows differences. And that's where you will focus on result as well as diversity and talent. So I think, that's a huge piece, that you need to start thinking. Beyond, what you do today. And if you join an organization, this is a very good framework for you to reflect back that how can you become that leader of tomorrow? And, how can you focus on, couple of competencies for leading yourself, leading relationship and leading the culture of the organization. If you move to the next, and quickly talking through the inclusive leader, because if you have to become the inclusive leader, these are my quick wins. Be authentic to yourself and your team members. Emotional resilience is going to be the utmost key priority. How do you show emotional connectedness? How do you show emotions to the people? How do you show the genuine connect with the people? How do you self-assure yourself that this is the bright future? Because future is unknown, right? You don't know how market is going to get disruptive. So how do you provide assurance to yourself and your team? And how flexible you become to yourself and your team members are going to be a key parameters to become an inclusive leader. I have a quick success mantra and not spend time. These slides are available, and can be shared. So I'll not spend much time on the next slide. It's the quick win that, you guys can go through yourself, which means measure, develop, reward, and reinforce. But it's a quick success mantra I thought, I'll share with each one of you. And I have a quick video, and that's pretty much my last slide, slide 19. Which is a quick video. If you can click on that link, Neeraj. Now, if you go back, move away from the presentation mode, then you will be able to click the link. Neeraj, you'll have to share your screen of that video. It will open in another link, Neeraj.
Yeah, this one?
I can't see. I can only see the deck.
Okay, just a second.
Humans versus machines. This is humans enabled machines.
Can you hear me the sound?
Yes, this is good.
This is not humans versus machines. This is humans enabled by machines.
America can choose to reinvest in a larger set of people and places.
The question for employers is how do they think about giving their workers the kind of flexibility that they need?
Perfect. Thank you. let's have some question and answers. As promised, I've finished in a little more than 30 minutes, but I really want to hear your thoughts, your comments, questions.
First of all, thank you, Megha, for such a crisp and such a pacey session. And in the meanwhile, you brought out a lot of pointers which were useful for our audience today. So you gave them an idea about how reskilling is important, for the next step in your career, how brands are evolving, how different industry verticals are evolving, and how technology is disrupting the complete market. And one of the positives that we have taken through this presentation that this is not a pause, but this is actually a restart button, wherein we'll have to evaluate or reevaluate where we are lacking and how we can do things which helps us to sustain in the near future and upskill ourselves. So thank you for that. Now I'll be taking up some of the questions that our audience has shared in the Q&A section. So one of the question here is by Mridul Pillai. He asks, if companies are also in flux regarding the new skills that may be required, how do we as employees or entrepreneurs decide the areas that we might want to invest in to upskill?
So great question, Mridul. Now, all that context that I shared, right? See, think about, if Airbnb has to, actually Airbnb is maybe a wrong example as on today because they've already reinvented or started to bring in the new models. But think about Uber, right? Uber was pioneer in the space that they were in. Uber got reinventive services and they thought that, they're doing great fundamentally. But post-COVID, they don't know what's their offering, what's their market USP, because today there are multiple cab service providers, right from, their Blue Smart to Ola to, multiple other, vendors that provide. So you don't find Uber as a market pioneer anymore. You don't find that USP that Uber has. Now, they have to fundamentally think about what's their future in the industry, how they're going to work from their compete. Now, if I just compare them today to Blue Smart, now Blue Smart is eco-friendly. It's, work on electric vehicles. You can provide absolutely the same services for Uber. Will I not go and switch to them? Because, organizations also getting a lot CSR friendly. Millennials are very CSR friendly if you think about it. And that's where, a lot of organizations will have to reinvent their business, which means, yes, they are going to be in flux. They are going to be thinking that, what skills should I be investing in future? So, and it's going to be a journey. I think next 2 years are going to be very, very disruptive for organizations also to figure out what they want and what skills do they want for the future, which means if I think about any organization, they will look for the internal talent that, are they mentally ready to take risk and move to a job that they have not done before? Will they be able to open to switch their gears and say, hey, you are a technology guy. Can you do, engineering or, very different and get to us a market that we also never imagined for ourselves? Take an example of Airtel, right? Airtel, do you know in the digital payment mobile wallet platform, Airtel were right there 12 years ago in that industry. 12 years ago when nobody imagined mobile wallet. Paytm came very much later in the industry. Airtel had it as a technology. What Airtel never was able to imagine, the future that Airtel Pay can have, and therefore they never positioned themselves as a payment wallet. They always positioned themselves as a telecom organization. They were never able to switch their gaze towards it. Today, after demonetization, after multiple things, Paytm to Bharat Pay to, and so many MobiQuick, they've already captured the market. Airtel has lost it to the level that they could have imagined the world into the mobile wallet. I think that's what, imagine if a telecom head or a mobile head could have reinvented the wheel and say, let's do that. We have the technology. We just have to market in the right space and see what the future is. They would have been into a different space today. Airtel would have been not known as a, telecom, but into a very different space they could have become a fintech, to be honest, because just mobile wallet and then tomorrow the world is their own. So imagine that's the power. They need leaders of tomorrow now. Now, either they can hire or they can rely on their top performers who are ready to take risks.
Sure. John Thomas asks, how does the rise in jobs in certain areas and the fall of job in certain areas impact the Indian economy? Are we looking at an average lower per capita income, or are we looking at a higher income disparity?
So great question, and not that I'm an economist to answer that, to the detail. but this is my subject matter expertise. I think, India is a growing organization. And, if you see the maximum technology acceleration that's happening throughout the world, see, India is in a very benefit position because China, what's happening with China, right? You also know that, a lot of manufacturing like Apple, like multiple other organizations have moved away from China and are now investing in India. So in both the sense, because, India was always, was a development center for most of the IT hubs and most of the organizations because of cost effectiveness, because we also are a very good business continuity plan for the West because of the time zone differences and of course the quality of outcome that we provide. I think we are in a very good spot as an economy and as a country, and I definitely feel with this, even if there are jobs that's going to decrease, but the factor that the technology acceleration is going to happen, I think it's the best time for India to grow. Manufacturings are going to come a lot in India. We've already seen that. Technology, I think you've already heard the great resignation, which I now feel is a great reshuffle rather than the resignation, and that's actually happening because there is you're seeing 25% more jobs of technology come up in India. So I definitely feel that it's going to be a very, very upscale. But you're right. My also guess is it's also going to bring to a lot of pay parity differences, because imagine your lower jobs are decreasing, but your technology advancement is happening. That means you need higher skill levels. So semi-skilled labor is going to go down and your skilled workforce is going to increase, which will bring a huge disparity in the jobs that, or the income level between the jobs that's going to come up. So I believe that it's going to happen. But as I said, I'm not an economist, so I can't comment.
Great answer, Megha. Ravindra Tripathi asked how people with higher age group or people with good amount of work ex in non-technical space, how will they cope up with the changing scenario of the job market?
I can only answer this way. Change is the only thing which is inevitable. So if you don't change, if you don't adapt to technology, I think you would be behind the market. Today, if I take an example, right? 5 years ago or 6 years ago, look at our own parents, right? Today, they are all on Facebook. 5 years ago, they were not. Or 6 years ago, they were not. They all have adopted to WhatsApp, Facebook, multiple other technology, and some level your mobile wallets as well. I'll not say everyone, but there is a huge amount of adoption towards that. They have changed themselves in spite of being in 60s, 70s or 80s, because there was no way they could have survived without that. Because the world is moving very, very fast. So even if you are 17 years, 20 years, 25 years, you are going to become redundant if you don't change with the changing landscape, unless and until you are okay with that. But I think there is no limit to what technology is going to bring about. And the only way to move with that change is to, change your mindset, to learn new technology, to get yourself technology savvy. That's the only way to deal with the future.
Asta here asks, what happens in case the individual wants to make a transition to another domain? Although having certification from a good university helps you in getting the job, but as far as the companies are concerned, would you prefer someone who puts up from the same domain or with an average experience? How do you think we should market oneself in such a situation?
So Asta, I always believe that it's easier to, shift a domain within the organization than, trying your hands outside the organization. And I'll tell you why. See, first of all, if you're inside the organization also gives a free hand for you to change jobs internally, then obviously hiring an external candidate. Secondly, why do you want to change everything for yourself? Domain also, and then company also, then culture also, and your boss also. Why don't you get your hands dirty first, where you have the known environment? And then once you have 6 months of experience or 9 months of experience, it's also easy for you to position outside for a new job in the new domain. So that's my first piece of advice to you, Asta. The second part of your question was, will the hiring team, which is the external partner, hire somebody with the similar experience or the new? It totally depends on the years of experience and the role that you're hiring for. If it is a people manager role, of course you would want somebody with the expert, because I would not get a people manager or a leadership person who doesn't even know the domain, right? Because then the team members will get, oh my God, this person doesn't even know the craft. Why is this my boss even, right? So that's going to be a big thing. And therefore, my advice is always, if you want to change domain, try and do it within the same organization. Much easier on your mental, emotional state, because you already know the organization culture, you know people around, easier to take risk as well. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Halim here asks, what are the highly demanding branches in financial institutions or banks in coming 5 years from now, as per your thoughts?
So, see, my brother is in banking now. He recently shifted to fintech. So, he used to tell me, 3 months ago, and I had a very detailed conversation with him. He was telling me the most talked about thing in the board of directors or between the CEOs of banking organization, I'm saying hardcore banks like ICICI or SBI, is they're worried about, in next 10 years, will they even have a future? And why? Because today, how many times have I gone to my own HDFC bank and did anything from a banking transaction? I do everything online. My mobile, credit card helps me do, or debit card helps me do the transactions. If I have to change something, the only thing that I have to go to bank for is changing the address. That also because they made it mandatory and not keeping it online. But that's the only thing that I have gone to a bank service today, or a locker service, probably in the older time context. But apart from that, everything is available online. And imagine if that's the future, banking, in my mind, the traditional banking is going to get completely eradicated in the next 10 years, till the time they, don't take services of these fintech as a technology partner, but rather think about what disruptions it themselves can bring as a banking services to enable the customer. I think we're still at a very native stage where, banks are utilizing fintechs to, provide them a technology, service. I think they have to reinvent the wheel to say, oh, we are the technology, and not saying, oh, technology is just an enabler of the services. I think that's the full shift that the banking organizations will either go through it. If not, they'll just die their own death, and fintechs are going to be the new bank for you, each one of you.
Great answer. Ashwin asks here, what is your way of identifying the new areas emerging and approach to rescale them?
Now, as an HR, if I answer that, and I don't know if that was your question, but I'm assuming, if not, you can correct me. I think what every organization is going through is understanding what's the business landscape for the next years, and they're only keeping it for the next 2 years, because beyond that, nobody knows the future. And basis, what the organizations want to do, and then it breaks down at a level of saying, okay, then what do we have currently as a skill set? What skill set we don't have? What skill set can we internally grow within the organization, especially for manager and above level? See, hiring, at senior levels is also expensive. And secondly, it's also a risk for the organization. So organizations do want managerial and above positions to be internally filled a lot more. Therefore, they try to train them, try to retain them, try to upskill a lot of those, piece of workforce so that they're ready for the future skills. And of course, junior talent, campus hiring can always happen, and then you can reskill them in whatever are the needs of the future to be able to provide the future opportunities and the skills.
Sure. So in the interest of time, I'll be taking the last question for today's session. This goes out by Benifer. And he asks, as a senior HR leader, how open are companies to recruit personnel from non-related industries?
I think, I'll be very honest, it's very open nowadays. It's gone are the days where, it's not a telecom resume, so you'll reject it. Or gone are the days when you would say, this person comes from Max Life Insurance, so this guy will not be fit for a technology organization. I don't think so. The world exists that much today. There will be, of course, if you're a salesperson, sales expertise is required, right? And some part of domain, at least even if it is 2 years, it's required. But I don't think so. Nowadays, industry think like, we only need person from the same industry. I think there is a lot of flexibility / cultural shift that has happened. I have seen, my own people in my company from fintechs going to multiple industries. It's not just fintechs anymore who are our competitors. It can be technology, it can be e-commerce, it can be any kind of industry that's hiring from everywhere. I think that's the landscape that is today. So I'll say there is an aspect. It's not that it's completely gone away, but changing industry is not at all a challenge today.
Great. On that note, I would like to thank you, Megha, for such a great session and enlightening us through the experiences, the real life scenarios, and the knowledge that you shared with our audience. I'm sure everyone gained a lot of insight through the session, and we will have a lot more questions, and we'll try to send it to you as soon as we get them. Thanks a lot from all of us for sharing your time, patience, and your knowledge here. Thank you. Thanks, Megha. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Saurabh.
Thank you, Megha. Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you, Neeraj.